Hi everyone, my name is Tim. I'm Technical Support and Installation Engineer at HCRsoft. In today's webinar, we will have a look at lookup lists and how to make benefit from using them. After the session, I will check if there are any questions to answer. You can use the chat box in the GoToWebinar panel. I expect the webinar to take somewhere in the range of 20 minutes. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available online later on. Okay, let's get started. We have different ways of creating lookup lists, using the lookup list wizard, the included dictionary, or by using an external data source. A drop list can be simple or it can be really advanced. The dictionary that we provide as a sample is in the default profile, and that gives you an idea on how to use that. But you can use the dictionary in many ways actually. For instance, as an alternative to the lookup list wizard. An external data source can be used for big amounts of data, providing the CAD user with content searching for better usability. The external data source can be a spreadsheet or a database, for instance. The lookup list has three options where we define our content. It is user specified, from database, or from a scripted call. From the wizard, I will show the user specified and the database list types today. A custom list is a more special case where we pull the entire definition from a script added in the CustomTools administration. This could be adding a SQL server and performing some really advanced queries using programmatical approach and then return results into the user interface. I will ignore that option today because most users will find the more general ways are okay for most profiles. With a user-specified list type, we can provide additional three list types. We can provide simple, key value, and hierarchical list. Each list type needs to be tied to at least one property in CustomTools to return the required value in the user interface. And don't worry, you will see this in SOLIDWORKS later on. A simple list returns one value, selected directly from a drop list. A single value can be a word, a sentence, or numbers, or any string you need. A key value list lets users select a known value from a drop list and can be set to return up to 15 additional values. And these are called keys. For instance, if you have a drop list called customers, here you can select how the customer name is displayed. And when the user select that, we can even add a customer ID from your ERP system or the street address and so on. These are the keys that we add automatically. So if we only had the list of customer IDs, then we needed a list somewhere to determine which customer was attached to any given ID. And this is really complicated if you are working with IDs and customer names and so on. A hierarchical list can be used as a selection filter where users select one item in a list, and based on that selection, we provide whatever is located under that category. It can also be used to display a special property in CustomTools where we provide a tree structure list inside the properties. A hierarchical list can also have keys defined. The key value and hierarchical lists are both often referred to as alias lookup lists. You need to see this now, I think. So let's have a look in SOLIDWORKS. And I'll create a new part for you. No modeling today, it's pure list and properties work. So I have created a small profile with different kinds of lists in it. And actually, I added a list of lists to show you. So in this case, I'm selecting from a drop list, and I want to show you the user-specified simple list. And when I do this, I activate the group containing these properties. And this is something you might didn't know in CustomTools. You can set the visibility of a group based on a property. So that's another trick for you. But in this case, I have a user-specified simple list, and this is going to pull out the list I have defined in CustomTools and return the values in the user interface. In this case, I have fabricated, purchased, assembly, and group of parts. And whatever I select is what I get. Nothing attached. It's a simple list. If I were to select a key value list instead, then I would have more functionality built into my list. So I could select, for instance, the laser cut, and when selecting that, I return the value yes for the DXF file. So this is a key to this item in the list. So when I select laser cut, I automatically return yes for the DXF file content. If it was other, then maybe I didn't need a DXF file and I could return no. So these are returning the text in the drop list and then the key as a value after that. And the DXF file dialog is not really required to be displayed in CustomTools, but for demonstration purposes, of course, I need that. We can tie up to 15 keyed values to a property. So for the customer, it's the same as this one, but with more content. So if I'm working with ATR soft, then I can select the customer, and then I would feed in the customer ID, maybe the ERP group, the street address, contact person, and so on. And if you were required to use the customer ID, for instance, in your file name, yeah, it's no fun being the engineer then, because then you'd have to maybe open your CRM system or your ERP system to get the list of customers. But we can just pick the customer name, and this is more meaningful for the human eye at least. This is a more computer programmable sentence, I guess. So we can tie these keys directly onto a known property. And again, all of these fields, I didn't even need to return them to the user interface. I could set them as hidden in my properties, and then they would just go into my document. So if I say OK for that one, and look at my properties, then all of these properties are added in here automatically. I even get one additional, that one. This is I didn't show that in the user interface, but here I'm combining a key where I have selected that PRP 001, 3, 2, and 4 needs to be combined into a new string. So in this case, I'm combining the address into a one-line sentence. So you can do a lot of nice things with these keyed values in the lookup list. But if I'm going to open this one again and change my property, then the properties, of course, is going to be updated accordingly. So this is now done. So here is a node added. You can even return empty fields into to the software. So in this case, just a caution that Francois Simon is a sales manager. And then have a look at a new part. The hierarchical list is the third list type that we have. And these groups are actually the same. I have one property group here, and this one is doing exactly what the three top ones are doing. So in this case, I'm again picking from a list. In my case, I'm selecting pneumatics, and then whatever is located under the pneumatics group or category is then shown in the next dialog. So for this one, I have combo device conduction cylinder. If I select something else, control systems, then I get different selection choices in this one. So I can go and select the pneumatics, standard cylinder, and non-rotating. And then I have tied in a key to this list as well. So for this component group, I use ID number 92. If I were to clear these ones and go to this one, which is exactly the same, just shown in a different way in the user interface, then I get the hierarchical list control. So I get a tree structured drop down in this one. So now I can select the Festo, and that would return ID number 02. The same type of list, just retrieved two different ways from our properties. Okay. Okay, close everything. And go back to PowerPoint. If you share the same type of data between more systems, for instance the customers, used both in your CAD and ERP department, then it would be crazy to define the same data in two SQL databases. Just connect and pull the data you already have. We admit that this is not as easy as defining your list directly inside CustomTools, but you have a lot more functionality and flexibility by using a shared data source. Again, if you have all your customers already defined in your ERP or CRM system, then it is a waste of time to define all of those again in your CAD environment. Plus, there is a really big risk of typing errors. Use the same data source and all of your properties are exactly the same. At least your typing mistakes are then uniform. Working with SQL lookups will almost for sure require that you install the Microsoft SQL Management Studio. If you are not great with SQL, ask your IT if they can help realize your idea. Most likely, IT already have the management tool in place. The query defined in my PowerPoint retrieves data from a database. The small amount of text is all we need to get 228 rows of text fed back to our list. Adding more to the database is just going to return more results to pick from in the list. Seeing is believing. So let's have a look. So again, in the properties, I'm this time going to select the database. And the database is actually, in my case, really simple. It looks like a simple list. So if I'm going to pick the drop arrow, then I can get all of the content that I have. These values are actually retrieved directly from our CustomTools dictionary that I was talking about a bit earlier on. So these values already exist in our database. I could, by defining the right query for the SQL, add a key to this. So in this case, I have the English language, and then I could have maybe the German as a key. And if I select the ball, then I would return the key value, which is the German translation. But again, you have a lot of options for using this, but really simple way of doing it. And you do not need to maintain your data on two platforms. It's everything returned from the same data source. And this is really clever. Okay. We do provide another way of getting all that data fed into SOLIDWORKS. Using CustomTools administration, we can define external data sources and more graphically pick what to use in the software. Mind you that this will not create a drop list type in CustomTools, but I'll show you that in a minute. We create a database lookup, for instance, linking to SQL or Excel. The user picks the external lookup button in CustomTools properties and then opens a searchable window from where we can insert data to the SOLIDWORKS model. As before, allowing you to reuse the same data across more systems or just to ease the CAD administration work. If you have a lot of data, Excel is actually really good as a data source. It is more easy with the more editing functions you have in Excel. And I have an Excel sheet here. And this is one that I'm going to show you in use in CustomTools in a few seconds. So all of this data is just maintained in an SQL file. Sorry, Excel file, of course. And you can add all the content to this that you need. I mean, you can go EFGH and so on, just add more and more keyed values or aliases to this list. But having a look inside SOLIDWORKS using this one, let me just make sure I'm on the correct slide here. I can select the external data. The external data, as I said, does not provide you with a drop-down. It gives you a button to open a database. So when I press this one, I open up my search window. And I can clear that, and I can run a full search. And this will return all of the results found in my Excel file. And I can definitely go ahead and filter on this and select, well, I want a material item called 207 maybe, and then run a search for that. That would return 2 results. I could search for plate. That would return 66 matches. And I could filter it even further down and say, well, I only want to have something called 90. And that would give me, in this case, 2 results. So it's a really nice lookup list where you have filterable content. And when I found what I need, I can just copy or link that into my properties. And again, the only thing that I really need in this case was the material item. I didn't need the description 1 or 2. Not in the user interface, those could be hidden. So the user does not really need to see those. But if I say OK, they are then added into the properties. Okay? Using the dictionary as a lookup is another great way of reusing data and spend less time typing text. We can use the dictionary to translate properties used in our files, but only when they are retrieved from the dictionary and they have a matching translation in place. The dictionary can also be used as a lookup list, just like the simple user list or an external data source. It really depends on how you want to access the data from within SOLIDWORKS. So I will go ahead and show you. The dictionary. So this is how the dictionary is actually working if you install the default profile from CustomTools. You get a dictionary and you can open that. And this is a filterable list, you could say. So if I search, it searches incrementally. So I can search for PL, and everything starting with PL is then going to be returned as a selectable item. So I could select plastic and hit OK, and that would return all the values. So again, a dictionary is kind of an alias list to use, but you do not need to have many translations in place. If you just have a really big list that you want to maintain inside CustomTools, you could use the dictionary, in fact, just to find this information. So another way of using lists. There are most likely more areas where lookup lists are useful, but I have highlighted the ones on screen. Especially the reuse and general managing of properties is a big thing. If you type the same property over and over or need to cross-reference other systems to get everything correct, then you should start using lookup lists now. I want to show the file naming, where a part file name must reflect the type of part in question. For an assembly, the file name must begin with the letter A, and for a part, the letter P. After that, we need the sequence. A and P are really easy, but imagine that we had 60 or more categories, and these had to use some crazy military numbering scheme. And actually, I have just hang on a second. I found this one. Most likely you do not work with this kind of list, but there are some people who are working with really complex lists. So in this case, some poor guy is working with metalworking. So that is item category or class number 29. So we can have a look under that, and we can see that there are subclasses for this one. So you have the battery, grid mating, buckle making, and these are actually subcategories with even more subcategories. And there are people working like this. You really categorize your work to a certain extent. And at some point, you just lose track of where you are. So if you only had to rely on these numbers, then you are completely screwed. Using a hierarchical lookup list for this would definitely save you quite a bit of work, because then you could select, well, it's metal wool making. Okay, then I'm in this ID, and that's a part of my file name maybe. Anyway, I will show you. So let's open up SOLIDWORKS again and just create a new file. Again, properties, and then the list type is my file naming to set that group visible. I need to select what type of file is in question here. So in this case, I'm using a sheet metal. That is what I'm going to create. And then I'm returning the value or the prefix SM, because that is tied as an alias. When I select sheet metal, I get SM. If I select a weldment, that would return the W, and that would then build my file name combination W-3 in this case. So if I save that, my file is automatically saved into the correct location without user interaction at all. Really nice and time saving. Can I use this, you may ask yourself? In most cases, the answer is a clear yes. Make lists. Maybe build in some intelligence like the keyed values or the alias if you prefer that term. Use lists to drive, for instance, the file name or set ID numbers on different property categories. Spend less time on typing the same values over and over and more time on design. Become much more profitable by increasing the value time you add to projects. Typing properties was never a part of the sole project, but properties are a big part of your projects, right? In short, just fill the gap between you and the technology. We are open for questions when the recording is stopped, but first I want to thank you for attending this webinar, and I hope to see all of you for the next one. We have not planned this yet, as far as I know, because we have SOLIDWORKS World coming up, but you will definitely get invitations when we have a new plan. So thank you all and have a nice day.